we're designing this for them. That's more for them to worry about. We're just designing utility.
So you're not planning to worry about that at all?
I mean, it's not really our issue. We're just designing what they wanted us to design.
In addition to that, I believe a lot of the data is going to be collected on campus. They're not just going to be walking around in the woods with this through GPS signal.
Okay,
so
I'm just...
It's not going to be like, oh, these kids live at this house.
Okay, just making sure, because
like
that gets into a
a
really kind of sketchy gray area of, you know, data management. That gets risky, you know.
If you have a
we
crowdsourced
understand how
platform,
that can be confusing, but it's more, we're not really worrying about that right now. That's probably more down the line of like, once they get the devices, you can't leave the school premises without it and stuff like that. But.
So secondly, and this kind of ties into that, like where are you guys going to be hosting this? What server is going to be beefy enough to handle all of this data? And on top of that, how often are you going to be taking data points and uploading them to the server?
So we want to do it not like as a every 10 seconds take a data point. We don't want to do that. We wanted to do a like a trigger, like Ryan said, a button push to take the data. So from my understanding, I don't think it's going to be that much data, but maybe I'm misled. Especially in the early stages when we only have 2 or 3 devices, I don't think it'd be overwhelming. But I do understand what you're saying later down the road. As of right now, I don't see that being an issue.
So for the initial stages of our project, it's not at the point where there's multiple large school districts who are collecting this data. So I don't see as much of a server side overhead issue. But as it goes on, that would be a problem with the state of Texas education board.
So that will fall out of your scope. You guys don't care as much about that. You guys are just doing a proof of concept for a global deployment.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So the overall like massive data analytics isn't our goal. Our goal is to prove that it is.
Okay, so you guys will only be working with a few modules.
Yes.
Right.
Joe, first a comment. Don't describe your alpha as, quote, a mess of wires. Just say breadboard.
Okay.
See some word stuff. Could you go to your Gantt chart? So, what's that red line that takes up 7 months?
This one,
Yeah.
electronics release.
What does it mean?
So like Ryan was saying, the beta is going to be probably not the PCB, so that one will be developing the PCB board and the final electronics.
So that also includes the summer where Dr. Drummy told us that we're supposed to assume we aren't working. So that's a little misleading in the fact that 3 months of that time, we're assuming that we're doing that.
Just a note on that, hopefully beta is longer than final. Hopefully you figure out all the problems in beta. Quick fix for final, so I might think about swapping those.
So you're suggesting like maybe make beta like a little bit longer?
Beta, you should have more of the testing. Final, hopefully you have all those problems worked out. You make it, produce it, it works. You don't want to go through and have a lot of problems.
Final should be your beta board after you figure out the problems and you just remove your test points.
See, it should work. It should be able to
Okay.
It should be, yeah.
So like 60-30.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so y'all saying you're using cellular data, correct?
Yes.
So who do you plan on paying for that? Like, how are y'all gonna plan on paying, like, if you have, I'm just gonna assume that there's over 4,000 school districts in the state of Texas. That's 4,000, if you give each school district 1 device, that's 4,000 devices. AT&T does not charge, like, minimal values. They rack up prices. So how are y'all, I mean, I understand it's on small scale right now, but also 3 devices, paying for 3 devices to link to somebody's cellular, like who do y'all plan on using and how do you plan on paying for that?
So the provider that we've looked into so far is called Hologram. They specialize in IoT cellular connections. So they specialize in these smaller data size transmissions and high volume. So a lot of their applications are more industrial. So from my initial assessment, I would assume that they have a lot of data points that are being transferred, and because of the small size of these packets, it's not going to be like as massive as a data plan as it sounds, and also because of we're still in like basically the proof of concept of this, it's not something where we're really looking into a giant data plan for the entire state school districts at this point. We're just looking into the data plan for our testing, which from what our research has shown has been relatively inexpensive for like a hobbyist level.
Okay, cool. So just a small nitpicky thing for hardware. When you say you're doing your alpha, y'all are saying y'all are going to be breadboarding and testing, correct? So when you say alpha, at least for the 426 right now, when you say alpha, we're thinking your very first PCB that you design. So on your Gantt chart, I would say, breadboard testing and breadboarding your components. And then at least for your Gantt chart, your alpha is technically your beta. So that way you have your alpha PCB and then your beta PCB. After you fix your issues in alpha, then you go to your beta PCB.
And beta in final, so
Yeah.
you don't have to have another.
I'm on the board, I think it's pretty cool, but as a parent that's had 3 middle schoolers, I think I'd advise you to talk with your sponsor that maybe there's an electrical solution that can fix a social engineering problem, that those middle schoolers are going to screw up the data. And that if there was really a solar port, so that you could leave one of these things in a pristine place, so there's always some data that's valid. Even though all the kids' data is invalid, this teacher can still make sense out of the data. So I guess I'm asking for a scope, so that if you put someplace on the top of a mountain or in a stream or in a quiet place, in a busy place, so at least a student, a teacher has a chance to have that match, show up, without it being in the dryer or in the head type of the car.
We agree.
Okay, so you all talked about this being a wearable position device, but in slide 12, I think that was y'all's CBD. It's more of a handheld device. What is y'all's final product going to actually end up looking like? Is it
So-
going to be like a watch or?
So we understand the term wearable can be confusing. We were confused by it at first, but in the pollution monitoring community, wearable just depends. Like it's a lot of coal miners. They like the tip top design, the one on the left, one we showed you. That one can be like strapped onto their waistband so that they know that they're not breathing in hazardous air. So they consider that a wearable.
Like a walkie-talkie.
Yeah. So it can be misleading, the term, and maybe we can consider coming up with a better name. But I understand your confusion. Jeremy?
So just to tag on to that, so you're saying it's an active device, they have to push a button to take a reading, or does it also passively take readings?
We plan on making it to be like triggered, but we could make it take it every so often, but it just depends on what the sponsor wants.
Okay, yeah, so maybe just clarify that early on, that way your software person doesn't have to like flex and figure that out on the side. How are you guys standardizing your results? I think this is what Professor Munz was talking about a little bit. He has a good point when you want to have like a good baseline, so you know what readings are generally valid. Because if I'm just like standing in my house with fire going, like my pollution reading is going to be a little different than if I'm standing on my front yard during a normal day. So like how in the lab at least are you guys standardizing your results? One, to know that whenever you finish your PCB design that you're valid. That do you have like a standardized like box for instance that you can put it in that's got an air density quality, you know what I mean? And then like you know what this is at all times. Do you have that kind of setup? And is that
So,
part of your process?
the extent of our testing so far is we do it in a room and then we go to under like a desk where it's dusty and we do it and the readings change. That's what we've done so far because we've met only on campus to test it.
Okay.
But we plan on testing maybe getting into a room, taking readings, lighting a cigarette, and then taking readings again. And what we've read online is that does significantly increase the...
So, maybe just like taking any other safety questions that might follow mine, maybe just make sure you guys have like an isolated, controllable environment. Do like a couple cubic feet, like just like a small box that you can control directly.
If you
And
need
can
someone
do
to
a
smoke cigarettes
variable,
for you, let me know.
PPN density, right? And then you can push.
You can put smoke inside of it.
Yeah, and then you can use like a fog machine. Like that, maybe some cigarette.
So, also our project advisor, Jeremy, has access to very, very expensive sensors that he can take our device and then measure using this like $75,000 sensor with our device, make sure those measurements generally match.
Just a follow-up on that, talking to the fire field that's on King College Station, they probably have a good place to be testing, especially since they've been training so long.
So you guys mentioned at one point during your presentation you were considering taking the chip off of the Arduino and moving it onto your own PCB?
Considering.
Considering. So at what point are you going to set your final date to make that decision? That is a very big decision you need to make, because
Yeah.
putting that chip on the board, the wireless functionality is gone. You have to design your own microstrip antenna to make that work. That is going to take several iterations of your PCB to get it right. In impedance matching circuits specifically.
Again, probably, I mean, we can't give you a date now, on when we would do that, if we do that. But probably by the end of the semester, we need to determine whether or not we could do that.
It's definitely something to think about, because one of the issues we ran into in making that decision was that putting a microprocessor onto your own PCB, designing the impedance matching circuit, and then designing the microstrip antenna to go with that, you can't test that without ordering a PCB, having everything else working, and then seeing if the wireless connectivity works. It takes a couple iterations unless you just get lucky and get it right on the first try.
Very important.
One last question.